Hello, hello, my name is Jocelyn. This is my Scofield Studio teaching site, also part of the HiTS series, which is the ear training exercises. And this video is specifically about the parts of the voice. Most singers know the vocal folds or the vocal cords, but there are a few other components that really make up healthy singing, and we're going to talk about those today. Okay, so the foundation of singing is breath. You can't have singing without breath, and you can't have controlled singing without effective breath and effective use of the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is the muscle that we all use, whether you're singing or speaking. The diaphragm sits underneath the ribs, and when you breathe, it expands. And singing is technically an exhale because you're expelling air. You're just using it with your vocal cords meeting, so it makes sound. And technique, good technique, is the ability to control the diaphragm when you sing, so you can be really effective with your air. So if you have poor diaphragm regulation, you may use your air really quickly. When you sing, you take a breath in, and then your singing is the exhale out. So being able to control your diaphragm is very beneficial to singers, and there is a way to do it. A lot of times it's with breath techniques, exercises that elongate the breath, and using support to not only support the sound, but also to slow the diaphragm. Even when you're singing, to use as little air as possible and to hold the space that you're creating in the breath. That's a way of manipulating and controlling the diaphragm so you can make your voice more flexible. So anyway, so the diaphragm is a really big deal. When you can control the diaphragm, you can control the steadiness of your breath. You can usually sing longer phrases. You can think of breath as the fuel of your sound, and you can think about your diaphragm and your support mechanism, also includes your abdominal muscles, as the engine for your sound. The second part we're going to talk about are your vocal folds or your vocal cords. Now these are tiny, I think they're the size of your pinky nail. They are tiny little bands of muscle that vibrate really, 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 really fast. And when air moves through them to create pitch. They stretch out for higher notes, they relax for lower notes, and they also tilt and do other things as you're singing in different parts of your voice. So the only way they can make sound is when air passes through them. Now, depending on how much your vocal cords are meeting, depends on the tone. So you can have a really breathy tone, and your vocal cords aren't actually meeting very much. You can have a very focused tone or a pure tone, where you have more pitch and also you're using your breath more effectively. The breathier the tone, the more air escapes when you're singing. So it's actually not a super effective way to maintain breath, but it's a sound, and that's fine. You can think of your vocal cords as like rubber bands that stretch out, and as you elongate them, they get higher. As you relax them, they get lower, and you can change the tone by how much they're meeting. Usually a really clear tone is with vocal cords that are meeting in a healthy fashion, and they don't have very much tension, and they're not strained at all. Okay, number 3, the larynx. So the larynx is this, you can think of it like the voice box. So it's sort of the mechanism that the vocal folds live inside. And it shifts position when you sing high and low with the vocal cords as they're stretching out. The larynx should be as still as possible. If you draw up your larynx, you can go, you can kind of see it, shifting the larynx often creates more tension and worse technique because the mechanism that you're holding the vocal cords is moving around too much. You want the voice box, you want the larynx to be pretty still. So even as you're going high, if you start moving the larynx up or down while you're singing too much, it will strain the sound. It'll make it actually harder for the vocal cords. You want your larynx to be pretty stable all the time and pretty still. Even when you're going high and low, it shouldn't be moving. It moves around a little bit, but it doesn't move around a ton. And the larynx has the hyoid bone in it, So the hyoid bone is like a pretty amazing little tiny bone. It's a floating bone on top of the larynx, and it's at the base of the tongue, not attached to any other bone. So it's sort of like in this basket of muscles and acts like a suspension system. And the reason why it matters so much is because when the muscles around the hyoid bone get tight, the whole vocal system, the whole voice feels tight. So if you've ever sung and this particularly like right here is tight, that's where the hyoid bone is, and that's where this whole suspension system is, and it's no good. The vocal cords strain, the muscles strain in the throat. Usually the voice becomes tired more easily. It's just not great technique. Then you have your throat, your mouth, your nose. All these are like resonators. And if you've ever looked at your sinus cavity, like there are so many little spaces in your sinuses. Within those spaces, sound resonates. So when people talk about the mask of your face, it includes your sinuses and the bones around your cheeks that help the sound resonate and shape the tone. So you can think of it as a resonators where you can intentionally direct sound to resonate in those areas, and it all works together. So your tongue, your pharyngeal cavity, your nose, your sinuses, they all work together. And the amazing thing about voices is that everybody's mechanism, everybody's resonators are slightly different, and the way they produce sound is slightly different. So that's why we have millions of different voices, because your body is your instrument. So they're gonna be slightly different from each other, regardless of, even if you have the same teacher, even if you have the same technique, it's not gonna be the same sound. Okay, moving on. Your pharyngeal cavity is like all back there. So part of the resonators, besides your like bones and the shape of your mouth and your pharyngeal cavity, is your soft palate. And I had a video about the soft palate and how important it is, especially for classical singing. And the soft palate is like, you have your hard palate, which is right there, and then behind it, you can kind of feel it with your tongue, is your soft palate. And when your soft palate lifts, it creates space and directs airflow. And depending on the space and the shape of your soft palate, your airflow and your tone are going to change. So the difference between ah and ah is my soft palate. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, and then the next part is your articulators. Your articulators are like your jaw, your lips, your tongue, anything that makes the vowel shape and also the consonants. Tension can be here, especially in the tongue. The tongue is like middle management. Its job is to shape vowels and to do minimal like pass through kind of work, but it often does a lot more than it needs to do and like micromanages all the other parts of your mouth. So the tongue is often for singers tightening, balling up, pushing forward, pushing back to either control the shape of the mouth, could control airflow, controls the tone, controls support. It does all these things that it's not supposed to do, but if you just let the tongue do whatever it wants to do without having the rest of the technique in place, it tries to do everything. And is usually not successful. It usually causes tension and bad habits and blah, blah, blah. So your articulators should act as like formers of diction and vowel and no more. They shouldn't be overworking. Your lips shouldn't be doing crazy things. Your jaw shouldn't be like sticking out. And your tongue shouldn't be so active that it's tight. Everybody has these parts that I've listed in your voice. We all use them. We use them to talk. We use them to make sounds. We use them to groan. Like these are parts that everybody has. Each one of us can take all these parts and use it to make a healthy singing voice that has good technique and that is versatile. I am a firm believer that everybody can sing in tune. And if you can't, you can learn. And if you have a weak voice, you can make it stronger. The biggest limit for most singers is themselves. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Good luck.